Okay, sixth graders, we're going to start lesson 1 in chapter 5 today. And in lesson 1 in chapter 5, we're going to be looking at fractions and figuring out is the fraction closest to 0, 1/2, or 1. And for rounding purposes, you're going to try to figure out, should I just use 0, 1/2, or 1? Okay? So let's figure that out. How do we check to see if a fraction is close to 1/2? Let's start with that. How do you know if the fraction is close to 1/2?
Divide the denominator by 2.
Right. Divide the denominator by 2. If you divide the denominator by 2, you get half of the denominator, and then you can check it against the numerator. Look at this example. So we divided 13 by 2, and that's 6.5, right?
Yeah.
6.5. Half of 13 is 6.5. Now look at the numerator, is 6. Is that close to 1/2?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So the best estimate of this fraction is 1/2. We could just use, instead of 6/13, we could just use 1/2 and get an estimate. Okay? Now, if we had the problem, if we were starting with this problem, oops, 6/13 plus 3 1/8. And it said estimate 6/13 plus 3 1/8. Okay?
Okay.
So that means we're going to round 6/13 to either 0, 1/2, or 1. Right? And which one would we round it to? What's it closest to of these three? What do we decide, Nate? 1/2. That's what this says. What's closest to 1/2? Now let's round 3 1/8. 3 1/8, when we look at the fraction portion, 1/8 is closest to 0. Because if you did 8 divided by 2, to figure out how close it is to 1/2, what's 8 divided by 2? 4, right, Roy? And is 1 close to 4? Not really. Not really. It's only 3 off, but what would 1/8 is a really small piece compared to 1/2. So 1/8 is closest to 0. So in this case, we only use the whole number 3. So our estimated problem is this: 1/2 plus 3. 1/2. That's hard. 1/2 plus 3, since 1/8 is close to 0.
Wait.
So 1/2 plus 3 is
3
3.5. That's the best estimate of this. 3.5. Okay? Nate?
So did you run the 13 to 12 then? Because then that would make it 1/2. Because 6 is 1/2 of 12.
Okay, that's a different way that's another way to think of it. Yes.
What did you say?
What's a double? What's twice the numerator? Right? 12. If you did this times 2, you get 12, and 12 is close to 13.
But then still.
So that's another way to see that this is close to 1/2. Right? If you applied that to 1/8, what's 1 times 2?
1 times 2 is 2.
Is 2. So the closest to 1/2 would be 1/2, not 1/8. Right? So yeah, that's very good logic. That's very good, a good way to think of it. Okay? Let's try some more of these. 6/11. Oops, I gave you those answers.
Yay.
What is 6/11 close to? 1/2. Yep. So 6/11 is closest to 1/2. How about 9/10?
Whole.
A whole. 1. That's really close to 1. So the best estimate is 1/2. If we think of this as 1/2, let me change the color here. 1/2 plus 1, which is, Tyler?
1.5.
Yep. So the best estimate is 1.5. Okay. Here is it written. 1/2 plus 1. 1.5. So you kind of get this, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing is just, we're thinking of these fractions in terms of what they're closest to. 1/2, 0, or 1 whole. Right. Yep. Let's do one more. And then I'll let you practice. Okay? Alright, how about this one? 2 3/4 minus 1 7/8. So it's 3/4. It's closest to 3 probably. Yep, because when it's 5, when it's halfway, we usually round it up. So this is closest to 3. And this is closest to 2. So the best estimate is, okay? Any questions? That's what you're going to work on for today, okay? What is it closest to? 1/2, 0, or 1? All right?
1/2 is the answer to every